Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alena and this is Beauty by Alena. So today's video is going to be a story time about how I was trying to apply for a job to do hair in the movie industry. I'm like, this it was too much. So I went online, found everything I needed to find, and I filled out an application, reached out to the company. So then they emailed me with dates that I can come in to do my testing, my interview, and I was like, bet, I'm right there. So I kept receiving text messages about need workers today, and like so it's showing me like the weekends that there was like a rave in Eastern Washington, and I was like, they need a hairstylist for like these shows. But anyways, I looked at the jobs and it's like, oh no, like there's no hairstylist opportunities. It just kept saying like backstage, like forklift, and I was like, okay, but not for me, but thank you. So then the day arrives for me to go to my interview. So, you know, I get there, I was like 5 minutes late, my bad, but it was a long drive and my excuse. But so I get there and they give me a mask and they're like, you have to wear the N95 mask. I'm like, okay, no problem. And then they have me fill out like a COVID questionnaire. And so I do all that, and then this other guy comes in, he's there for the interview too. So they gave him a mask, he's doing like the COVID questions. I kind of look at this guy and I was like, thinking in my head, I was like, oh, is he here to interview to do hair too? Like he's way much older, but okay, like I was like, don't judge. So then the guy takes us to the back and there's like this room, and there's like one table on one side with a bunch of paperwork, and then there's like 6 tables set up like this, and then there's like about 1 or 2 people sitting at each table. No, it's 1 person sitting at each table, and then there's 1 more table over here, and there's a lady sitting there with a stack of papers too. And then I see like on the against the wall there's like another woman standing there, and I see like a bag, like a burlap bag, and just like a bunch of cords, and I was like, okay, like this is weird. And you know, I'm just like examining the room, and like all the people that are like doing the paperwork, like they're much older and they're all men, and I was like, are we all here to do hair? So anyways, then this guy's explaining to us that we're gonna start with the written test. That lady's gonna explain how to do it. Then we go and do the physical part, and then we do the interview part. And I was like, okay, no problem. I go over to the lady, she's giving my test. She's like, it's 114 questions. Answer to the best of your knowledge. Like if you don't know, just guess. And I was like, okay, I can do that, like test taking, whatever, you know? So she gives me the test, and there's like another booklet that comes with it, and so that's where the questions are. So I'm sitting there, like I start like reading the questions, and they're all like weird questions. Like I was hoping like I could just go to the back and like that it'll ask me questions about like the movie sets and like TV shows. And no, like all the questions were just like about like backstages, about different cords, different tools, equipment, the names for all the stages, like whether it's a concert. And I was just like sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know this information. Like I think the only thing that I answered really fast was like matching the drill to the name of it, because I was like, that's the only tool I know on there, and that's for sure. And so I'm just like taking this test, and like literally my body's on fire, like I'm overheating, I'm getting so much anxiety, because I'm like, why do I need to know all this stuff to do hair? And I was like thinking I should just go up to this lady, tell her like, I don't want to do this anymore, like maybe this isn't what I wanted, you know? But then I'm like, okay, like maybe just guess, like maybe you need to know this stuff to do hair, because maybe you have to kind of like have different chords, be in different parts of the stage. So, you know, I'm like, okay, like let's just do the test. So I answered all the questions. I think it took me about an hour and a half to do this test. And then so I give it to her, turn it in, she starts like grading it. And then I go check in with the guy, I want to say his name was like John. And so he's like, okay, like you're done with the test, that's good. So we'll have you go do the physical part. And I was like, okay. So I walk over there, and the woman over there, she's like, hi, I forgot her name, but she said her name. So I introduced myself. And then she's like, okay, so we're gonna start with your lifting position. And I was like, okay. So she tells me that she wants me to pick up this big brick. And I was like, okay, like, what am I gonna be carrying around chairs? Like, whatever. I'm lifting up this brick. And I hold it for 3 seconds, I put it down. And then she's like, okay, you probably need to work more on your back posture. Like, I guess I was bending over a little too much. And I was like, okay, I can work on that, you know? And then she's like, okay, so I'll have you take this bag full of sand, the burlap bag. And she's like, you'll walk 5 feet this way, hold, and then walk back this way. And I was like, okay. And like, let me tell you, I'm getting really irritated at this point because I'm like, why do I need to know this to do hair, you know? And so I pick it up, I walk it, hold it, walk back. She's like, okay, your posture is much better. And I was like, thank you. And then she's like, okay, let's move on. So then she pulls out 2 cords, like swings them around or swings them to like straighten them out. And then she's like, what you're gonna do is fold it the down under. And I'm just standing there like staring at her. And I was like, I mean, like, that's common sense, right? Down under, like you're rolling it. And then I was just getting like so irritated because I'm like, why do I need to know how to roll up cords now? Like, so I'm like gonna just play it off like I know what I'm doing. But then I was just like standing there, overthought it. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry, but I don't know how to do this. And she's like, okay. So then she shows me how to do it. Then she gives me the cord back and I just stand there and stare at her. And she's like, she's staring back at me and we're just standing there staring. And then she was like, did you want me to do it with you? And I just like stared at her and I was like, actually no. And she's like, okay. And she's like waiting for me to start, you know? And I'm just standing there and I'm holding the cord like this and I'm just still staring at her. And then I was like, you know what? I'm so sorry, but I don't want to do this right now. And she just stares at me and I was like, I just thought I was like signing up for something completely different. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm the person for this. You know, I was just thinking about like, there's all these other physical things that I have to do. And so then she just like, okay. And then she tells me like, you should probably go check in with John. And I was like, okay, I will do just that. And I was like, I'm really sorry about wasting your time. So I walk over to John and he's helping someone else. And then he's done helping other people. And I see my test and like there was a bunch of red circles on there, but I didn't see like the scores. And I was like, whatever. And he was like, so are you finished with the physical? And I was like, you know what, John, I'm so sorry, but I thought I was applying for a completely different industry. I was like, I don't think this is what I'm looking for. And he's like, can I ask what you thought you were applying for? And I was like, yes. I thought I was applying to do hair. And I was like, none of this has to do with hair. And I was like, and I don't really care to know all this extra stuff, like equipment. And then he was like, applied for the wrong local. And I was like, so I applied to work backstage and do forklifts and that kind of stuff. And so then he sat down with me and gave me all the correct information. And I was like, this would happen to me. And if I probably would have spoke up sooner, I wouldn't have wasted 2 hours of my life doing like backstage stuff, like taking tests about it. I was like, you know, I just felt down low. And so I was like, wow, if I would have just spoken up, let this be a lesson. Speak up when something isn't what you thought it was, just say something, you know? I was like, I could have spent so much time doing something else. But anyways, that was my experience applying to work on movie sets. And these things happen to me pretty often. Not in this extent, and not waste 2 hours of my life, but you know, I didn't know what to expect, but that's what I got. So thank you so much for being here today, for listening to my story time. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will link my Instagram, my personal and my hair page down below, and I hope you can follow me, subscribe me, leave me a like if you think this is pretty funny or not, you know, whichever one. Anyways, I hope you besties have an amazing day. Enjoy your weekend.